I want to talk to you a little bit about the Orient, a discourse in my book entitled Born a Bastard, Now Born Again. When I left the States to go to Vietnam, I just want to share with you what compounded some of my madness about the street life. I look for love in all the wrong places. I look for it in different women. And when I found that women gave men money in the pimp game, I was determined that I was going to be a part of this life, that I was going to have these women to really love me.
Nearly 2 decades have passed since the war clouds first appeared over the Pacific and the United States was plunged into war with Japan. Time changes all things, not the least of them, relations between men and between nations. Today, a peaceful and democratic Japan stands as a strong and close ally. But in 1941, under the firm grip of a militarist government, the Japanese were led into what was to be the most costly and tragic war in their history. Different from any conflict in our history, the Pacific War was waged on an ocean battleground for military bases, which only a short time earlier had been obscure and romantic islands few soldiers ever expected to see. Many were American possessions, and the United States Navy was there to keep the peace in that part of the world.
Before landing in the Philippines, we were informed of a place called Subic Bay. Some of the older sailors that had been there 2 or 3 times would allude to the fact that we were going to Subic Bay in a place called Olongapo City. We were warned of the little children who begged for pesos, and as soon as you turned your back, they snatched your wrist watches. We were warned not to wear jewelry, nice wrist watches, and et cetera, et cetera. So the sailors who had toured the Orient in times past told us exciting stories of easy sexual encounters with many ladies. And needless to say, after 30 days on the water on the ship, weeks at a time, and of course we had just come out of boot camp for 6 weeks. When they talked about sex, we were ready. I don't have words to describe Olongapo City. I mean, you would just have to live it to understand it. Except the town was small with dirt roads, and when it rained, the roads became real muddy. And the place had a sewer smell. To get into Olongapo City, you crossed the river, and I can't tell you what the name of the river was, but read between the lines when I tell you it was a sewer smell. And so the taxi cabs were everywhere. I mean, you're talking about, well, if you've been to New York and you've seen taxi cabs, well, you see twice that many in a little town called Olongapo City in Subic Bay. So the taxi cabs were everywhere, coupled with armored jeeps painted in psychedelic colors, ready to take you to the live part of town called the Jungle, where all of the brothers hung out. And of course, it's a funny thing, you want to be around your own kind when you're overseas. And as you may know, black men may have been underrepresented in the professional ranks in the military, but we were overrepresented in the Vietnam War. But needless to say, our hearts burned when our ears were pricked, when we listened to the melody of the Motown sound coming from the clubs. We could swear. I mean, you would just, without a doubt, you would think, well, the Temptations, they're over here, or Smokey Robinson, or the Four Tops, when you pulled up in front of the clubs. or some other Motown groups. As we entered the clubs, we were shocked to see Philippine young men on stage who played, sang, and sounded exactly like the groups we loved so much back in the States. I mean, that was phenomenal to me.
Anti-war demonstrators protest U.S. involvement in the Vietnam War in mass marches, rallies, and demonstrations. Central Park is the starting point for the parade to the UN building. The estimated 125,000 Manhattan marchers include students, housewives, beatnik poets, doctors, businessmen, teachers, priests, and nuns. Makeup and costumes were bizarre. Before the parade, mass draft card burning was urged. Demonstrators claimed 200 cards were burned, but no accurate count could be determined. Reporters and onlookers were jostled away on purpose. Although mostly peaceful, shouted confrontations were frequent and fiery during the course of the march.
At the entrance of Olongapo City, we exchanged our money for their pesos. The rate was 80 of their dollars for 20 of ours. It was party time for us. The first very gorgeous woman who approached me became my lover and my friend. A prostitute purchased weed for me and protected me from the thugs. She slept with me until it was time to go back on base aboard ship. She never complained about anything, and whatever I gave her monetarily was okay. Well, let me rephrase that. Going aboard ship, being on an ammunition ship, we anchored out in the water. So we had to take small boats out to my ship, which was called the USS Camden AOE-2, which was an ammunition ship. And my ship, we gave supplies to the aircraft carriers, the bombs, and food and stores to the aircraft carriers. And of course, when we all sailed to Vietnam, we'd watch the carriers go over and bomb the inland from the bombs that we had sent over to the carrier. So that was our duty in Vietnam. But the young lady never complained about anything, and whatever I gave her monetarily was okay. You could not tell me then that having a prostitute and living the nightlife was not the good life. This young girl must love me, I thought. No matter how drunk I was that night, she never stole from me and always made sure I was headed back to the base on time. She would oftentimes promise me that if I ever did butterfly, that was a saying with the ladies that was attached to you, if you butterfly, I will kill you, and they would show you this butterfly knife.
A companion peace demonstration brings out 50,000 marchers in downtown San Francisco. They parade 2 miles along Market Street, pacifists and hippies together. Gigantic Kezar Stadium holds the mass rally, where anti-war songs and speeches figure a short scuffle between pro and con factions. No one was injured.
Which means if you butterfly see another woman, that they would cut your throat. You could not tell me this wasn't love. She must have cared, I thought. She didn't want me to be with another woman, but only with her. I encountered the same experiences in China, Japan, and even Australia, which is an incredible place. I loved Australia. We were king. The black man was king in Australia.